I'm going to warn both of you, we're going to be on a bit of a roller coaster ride. So it started with Steve mentioning Ryan Day's initial comments that are very serious off the playing field in regards to his childhood and what he had to deal with his father, and then how that's affected him and motivated him, and now his charity work. And then we dove into football, and we're going to bring some fun back into it a little bit later when we start talking historical games and wins and losses and so forth that we remember. But since this was brought to my attention a number of times at the end of our conversation last week, and I didn't get a chance to get to it, but other people are commenting and wanting us to comment on the Dr. Strauss report, Michael Drake, his tenure at Ohio State, the sexual abuse case involving 177 students during a 20-year span. And Steve, since you're on campus on a regular basis, this not being directly football related, I didn't really look that much into it other than the surface reports and what most people had discovered, and just, again, reading the headlines and the quick sound bites and the stories that came out. But just your thoughts about being around the program and how that's affected the program and what's been stated there.
Well, Mark and Claire, I think, and I'm sure Claire will have plenty, because she's living here as well in Columbus, and she knows full well the story. And we both know athletes who were impacted probably and affected by this from that time. But essentially, this is Dr. Richard Strauss, who was a team physician at Ohio State and did physicals plus as well as assessments on injured athletes and these type of things for a number of years. He was probably involved in athletics from the 70s through the 90s, through various athletic directors, Hugh Hindman, up through Rick Bay and Jim Jones, and even probably on to Andy Geiger. So this transcended a lot of athletic directors, a lot of coaches. He was involved with football players, wrestlers, any number of athletes from different sports. And there was always kind of an undercurrent of that what he was doing wasn't necessarily on the up and up. There were comments that were kind of on the undercurrent that maybe some things weren't right. And I come to find out now that there have been, the university made a release last week that there were over 170 documented athletes who believed that they'd been abused at the hands of Dr. Strauss, who coincidentally committed suicide about 15 or 20 years ago. So he's not around like Larry Nassar, the physician at Michigan State, who was put on trial for everything that he did as a national team gymnastics doctor, as well as a team physician at Michigan State. He went on trial. There is no one to put on trial for a criminal proceeding, but the university is acknowledging at least a little bit of culpability for what happened on, quote, their watch years ago, when, again, so many people who were employed there previously were coaches and trainers and the athletic department support staff. So in some ways, this is a bag of crap, for lack of a better term. I always go back to that line that was dropped in Michael Drake's lap here a year or two ago. And he's doing the best, in my mind, that he can do to maneuver through it. I think that there are people on one side who said that he admitted too much. He left them open to exposure, to lawsuits. There are people on the other side who are friends of these supposed victims, and the victims themselves who say his comments didn't go far enough. So my guess is there'll be litigation that comes down in the years ahead as these people will seek relief for pain and suffering and trauma that occurred. And it's going to be a difficult time. This is something that even touched Jim Jordan, a member of the House of Representatives, one of the ranking Republican members in the House. He was an assistant wrestling coach at Ohio State up through the early 1990s. And some of the wrestlers allege that they told Jim Jordan that they had been mistreated by the doctor and that he didn't do anything about it. He's denied any wrongdoing. And there have also been people who've come out on his behalf to deny it. Well, here's the thing. Russ Hellickson was the head wrestling coach. If this should fall on anybody. It should fall on the people who were being paid to be the head coaches, the people who were in the athletic department administration at the time when all this was going on. And that to me is and again, athletes would go to their coaches and in some instances report what they thought was wrongdoing, and nothing was ever done about it until well after the fact. So I don't know. I kind of meandered around all different sides of this story, but it's something that's going to continue to percolate along the lines of the Nassar story at Michigan State for years to come at Ohio State. It's just something that is not going to go away. And yet nobody who's working there currently is personally liable or culpable for anything that happened. I mean, so it's just one of those unfortunate things in life that the institution is still there, the athletic department is still there, and now they're going to have to defend themselves, it seems, in some of these situations.
And I'll just add very briefly that Mike DeSabato, the guy that's really leading the charge, was very much involved in Ohio State athletics, specifically Ohio State wrestling. The whole DeSabato family has been with Ohio State wrestling for many, many decades. Mike has been known to champion other causes, including some that have to do with, what he calls abolishing amateurism in Ohio State and just in college athletics in general. So Mike has a very big megaphone, and he definitely stands up for people who he thinks are being either disenfranchised or their voices aren't being heard. Several of these, the newer allegations are, I think, of really, we can put that on Mike getting some of these testimonies to come out there. I will add one more thing that predators, like Dr. Strauss, will oftentimes pick athletes and young men because of the stigma surrounding it. So just, again, for anyone that's listening, and I know this is a rather serious topic, but it's just very important that that your voice can be heard no matter what position you're in. Your athletic career will not be compromised because you come out and you tell the world that you have been abused.
Well said. Well said.
Well said by both of you, as was stated here by Jesse Sullivan. So a number of people on the live chat are very appreciative of both of you stepping up and outlining the situation and what transpired and what we know. Jesse Sullivan in particular says, I genuinely appreciate Steve's viewpoint and opinion. He always words it so well. Yeah, it's an extremely sad situation. Our discussions, this is very rare, but at times blindsided by the cruelty, the cruelty and the brutality and the disgusting acts that often invade people's lives.
Well, and the other tragedy here is that oftentimes, because fan bases are so pitted against each other, they're out for blood for another team. They're obviously championing one cause or another, and they would love to see Ohio State's athletic department get the death penalty. And in reality, we want victims to be heard. We want there's no price that anyone could pay that could give them their lives back or give them their innocence back. There's nothing that could be done that would be enough. And if that means the death penalty by the athletic department, then so be it. If that means that there's punishment for everyone involved, then so be it. But unfortunately, it's made to be a debate from people, almost like a partisan debate, to pick a political term, because Ohio State fans are so we're rabid, we're fans, right? We're fanatics. So oftentimes it's viewed as we're going to defend our team or our state or program no matter what, when in reality, those of us who really care and who are very real understand that victims' voices need to be heard, and it's extremely important.